So, guys, she has a fascinating story. She went from being 187,000 in debt, right, to being a thriving entrepreneur with multiple successful businesses. So, Simeon, first of all, why, there was a decision between this before and after. What was it, and when did it move from a should to a must?
I think when I realized that nobody else was going to come along and change my financial reality, that I had to be the one to choose something different. Sometimes I think that I've gone through all these different phases with money so I can talk about it and use the tools and empower others, because I've hated money. I've disdained it. I've avoided it. I tried to prove that I could create without it, all these different things and all these different, I call them all these different phases that I went through. And I think eventually I went, I need to do something about this. And I had started working with Access Consciousness. And I know you've had Gary Douglas, the founder of Access, on your show, which was so fabulous. And I started working with Access, and I was using the tools of Access, and they were amazing. In all these different areas of my life was changing, and there was more joy and more ease is probably the best way to describe it. And I was not using the tools with money. I was avoiding it. And I actually organized this class for Gary and Dane, and it was in Gold Coast, Australia. And I'm sitting there, it's a money class, and they're talking about these money tools. And I literally in my head, I could hear myself going, oh, here they go again, talking about the money tools. And I was like, what are you doing? You have created yourself to be a bit of a financial mess here, Simone. What are you doing? What are you choosing? So at that moment, literally at that class, I went, okay, I made the demand of myself. I'm going to, number one, find out how much money I am in debt, because I knew I was, but I was sort of like that, la, 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 not really wanting to acknowledge it. And number two, start using some of these tools. Now, I could have used all of the tools for it, but I didn't. I picked a few, and I said, I'll just use these 3 tools for 3 months and see if something changes. So that was the moment that I changed things for myself.
Simone, something that's really interesting that sticked out, you said phases and tools. So I would love to see what were the phases you went through, and at each phase, what was the tool you used to go from being in debt, 200K in debt, which is not something that's easy, obviously, and to being a thriving entrepreneur?
Well, I think being in debt is easy in the way that you can just spend money and you can get into debt. I was working at getting loans from people, banks, anything. I was just good at that. You wouldn't have looked at me and said, oh, she's in debt, she's struggling, she's, got this lack in her world. Because if you said, hey, do you want to do this? I'd be like, sure. And I'd work out a way. I was definitely living. I was living, but ignoring at the same time. So the phases I would say is number one, definitely would have been, I don't need money, I can create my life without it. And proving that I could do that. And I traveled overseas for quite some time. And then I remember I came home and I had to move back in with my parents because I didn't have any money. And I was like, oh, that's not really what I want to create. So then I started saying, oh, well, maybe I can earn some money so I could, go get a place and live with some friends or myself, etc. So it was almost like I started justifying to earn money and I also started justifying it's okay for me to earn money because I will do good things with it. And I think a lot of people do that because I don't think a lot of us create for money. It's like money is something that shows up from our creations. We actually create because we like creating, we like creating a change or making someone smile or happy because we do, the money shows up afterwards. And that's what I've noticed with all the people I've met and different classes that I do and clients that I have is money is not what drives them. It's the change or it's the joy, whatever that is. So I noticed that, when I started saying, oh, okay, I'll earn more money and I'll do good things with it, it was a justification and I wasn't really receiving money either. So then but I did start receiving money. And then I went through, the next phase of actually really receiving money and having it be mine. I see a lot of people who do either like know how to spend money, they know how to save money, they know how to hoard money. But I think you have to educate yourself and know how to have all of that. I think at the moment, there's not a lack of money in the world, but there's a lack of flow. People are like holding on to their money rather than actually having this flow, between businesses, between people. That's the way our economy works, is when we have a flow. And at the moment, there's so many, things going on around the world, from recessions to wars to, all of this, that people are like holding on to it for just in case. And if we live in that fear-based reality of that just in case, then I don't see that flow occurring. And I think we need to put the flow.
And so what you're saying, basically, you need to learn how to create, save, and then invest that money. I'll be fully honest with you. Like, the thing that I struggle with now, that I think I'm going to fix, but I struggle with it, is not creating. It's pretty much saving the money. I tend to know how to make money, but I tend to be a reckless spender. Like, I would spend without even thinking. Like, I just all the time.
Okay, so, but there's a couple of aspects to that, because I do too. And yet I have investments now. Like, I have real estate, commercial investment. I have a stock portfolio. I have these things, but that's not the thing that drives me. It's not what makes me everything. So I do spend like that too. But I also know that I'm creating more. Like, I know that money's all in. And I think that with that mentality of going, oh no, I don't know where the next dollar's coming from, creates that having to hoard it. And I think there's a difference between hoarding and saving it. It's not about being frivolous, but also, why not, to some extent? Like, I know I'm capable of creating more money. It seems like you're capable of creating more money. So I do get, we can have that. And for me, it's also like, what would you like to spend your money on? What if you were spending your money on something that created a different future? Not just for us, but for the world, So, because there's that money, like, yeah, new car, new this, new that, and it's like, okay, that's all fine.
Yeah.
Like there's a property we have in Costa Rica called El Lugar. We are like 70% finished building it. And for me, I've invested in a couple of the casas there, the houses, and in horses there, etc. Because this breed of horse is just so incredible. I would like more of those horses on the planet. So for me, it's like putting my money into that sort of investment matches an energy of what it is that I would like to have as a future. So I guess a question you can ask is, are you spending money, in a frivolous way, or are you spending money to create a greater future?
Okay. So there's something that, there's a quote you said that really interested me. So your podcast is called Choice, Change, Action. So let's cover choice first. We covered the first decision that you made to move from in-depth to being a thriving entrepreneur. There's a quote you say that's really powerful. You say, life is not about ticking boxes, but enjoying abundant living and being fully engaged with all choices. Yeah. And I guess my question here is, how do you, first of all, become fully engaged with all choices and create greater choices for greater wealth?
So let's look at with the money stuff. And the second book that I ever wrote is called Getting Out of Debt Joyfully. And I think a lot of
beautiful title, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. It confuses most people, but yeah, thank you. If you're in debt, most people, nearly everyone I've spoken to, doesn't actually desire to make more money, because they go, oh, well, I've just got to pay it off. Like, I'm just paying off this debt. And so my whole point of this is, look at what you owe, look at your debt, look at your money situation, be really clear on what it is. And like, I don't know how much money you owe. It's like, divide it by, say, 24 and go, okay, so that's 2 years. Let's look at how much money I need to make extra each month in order to pay all this off, or something like that. Like, there's really some pragmatic tools that you can use in having a look at that. But you also still have to live. Like, it's not about you just being now like, oh, behind closed doors and now my life is boring because all I'm doing is working to pay off my debt. No, okay, you created the debt. Don't judge yourself and still live. you still have to live. As you live, you literally allow yourself to receive more. Like there's, more joy, more everything as you're living. And from that, more money shows up. Like money shows up when you function from joy, not when you function from stress or frustration or, the judgment that you've already created debt or you have money stuff going on. It's like, okay, now today I'm waking up. I'm going to take some action. What action can I take in order to change my financial reality and not stress about it? And because, I was talking to someone today and I was like, money is just money. Like, I know at the moment, there's people everywhere talking about money stuff and companies and projects or individuals, families, etc., and how much money they don't have. Why are we all telling the same story? Because we're all buying into each other's stories as well. And I think, if we create our choices in a different way, then we get to create a different future from the action we take, And again, that goes to the flow that I was talking about earlier. Like, what if we stop holding on to everything and actually let things flow?
I guess flow has been a big chapter in my life recently. And we'll cover that after. I'm really interested in the questions you ask yourself to open yourself up to a different way of creating wealth. Like what were 2 to 3 questions that you asked yourself to change your perspective?
Yeah. So, and change my perspective is exactly right. Because one of the things I realized is I was so quick to have a judgment or a comment about money. Like, I don't know, say a car drives past me and it's a really expensive, beautiful car, right? What do you do? And there's this mentality. It's so quick, and you'll go, oh my God, that's an expensive car. Or you drive in a neighborhood and you're like, God, these houses are just so expensive. Or the other way, you drive in a neighborhood and you're like, are the doors locked? You have this mentality of like, are we about to get robbed? Or you walk past a restaurant and you have a point of view. Can I afford to eat there or not eat there? Right? Here's what I realized. I was like, wow, whose point of view is this? Because obviously I grew up with my family. So, and my mother and father were very, very different. My mother was very, okay, we've got our house. We don't need to do anything else. We're safe. Whereas my father was an entrepreneur. He was a chartered accountant by trade. But growing up, we always had these different businesses that he was involved in, from importing, exporting, or, a part of a butcher shop. I remember we owned at one stage, So he was always like playing with everything. So I had that as one energy, and my mother's was just paranoid. So what I realized was, I don't even know what my point of view is. If I see a fast car, is that a great car, or is it too expensive, or is it too cheap? And so what I used to start doing was I would destroy, every time something about money would come up, I would destroy and uncreate my point of view in regards to that. And then ask myself the question, if I was choosing my financial reality, what would I choose? Like, what am I aware of here? And I realized that I needed to start looking at what actually worked for me, what I was desirous to choose. Like, what sort of car did I want to drive? What sort of house did I want to live in? How did I want to fly? All of these different things. What did I, want to eat, at an expensive restaurant or cheaper restaurant? Because it's all a point of view that creates your reality. And if you have a point of view that's about scarcity and lack, you'll create that as your reality. But if you have a point of view that you can receive everything, and you literally start receiving, and what do I mean by that? It's like, so many of us, when somebody says, hey, can I get you a cup of coffee, or, buy you lunch or something, we're so quick to go, no, don't worry about it. Or I've got this, or in your head, you start to go to this transactional reality and go, well, if you buy me a coffee, that means I've got to buy you one. No, it doesn't. Just receive. And there is so much in this energy of receiving, and we tend to cut it off. So we have this autonomous way at living rather than something different, something different. So that's why I really started asking, what's my point of view? Like, if I was choosing my financial reality, what would I choose? What am I aware of?
What am I aware of? Simone, to be fully honest, the thing you just said right now, the point of receiving especially in a Middle Eastern culture, for us, if like when it comes to paying the bill, okay, and you have 5 friends on the table, every single one of them will fight to pay the bill. So there's no way of, okay, I'm paying, you're fine, just pay.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. This is impossible in the Lebanese Middle Eastern world. So I can see that in myself, and I now have an intention to be more open to receive. So it is beautiful.
Well, when you said, like, if we were out to lunch and you were like, hey, can I buy you lunch? And I go, no. And we have this argument with this fight. Eventually someone buys lunch, right?
Yeah.
Well, then if I just went, wow, thank you. I'm super grateful for that. Thank you for buying lunch. You actually receive in that too. There's a different, like, it's a beautiful energy of gifting and receiving. So to your question, why is that in the Middle East? What's the...
I guess to some extent it's in the culture. That's one. So that's the point of view of the culture, is that I'm the one who should be gifting. Number two, I think there's some part of ego also that doesn't want the other person to have the edge in terms of, I owe you this, so next time you pay, you get what I'm saying? So these two dynamics.
So here's one of the things that we would talk about in Access Consciousness is two things. There's give and take program, right? So that give and take program is definitely like, I bought you coffee. That means that you have to buy me coffee next time. It's almost like you're keeping this scorecard, like this mental scorecard the whole time.
100%.
Yeah. Or there's the gifting and receiving. And the gifting and receiving is you buy me lunch and I receive it. That's it. You could even buy me lunch again, or I could buy you lunch, but it's give and take. It's more, and for me, that's such a beautiful energy. It's more how nature functions, It's people, I think we tend to...
Do you have an example in nature of how that gifting and receiving flows?
Yeah, I do. I'm very excited because I have a backyard that I created a food forest in, okay? And it's a backyard in Queensland, Australia, and I have like 24 fruit trees, and I have 12 of them are banana trees. And why do I have banana trees? Because they're like a natural water tank. So say it rains and in my backyard, a banana tree will literally hold on to the water underneath the soil.
Wow.
When it's really dry and it's sunny, and maybe my blueberries are going, oh my gosh, I need some water. And it's like the whole idea of a food forest is the blueberries underneath the soil, like they're all talking to each other. It's this ecosystem and they're going, hey, I need water. And the banana tree goes, oh, I've got some. Here you go. And they're continuously gifting to each other. And also, if you look at a forest, there's some trees who are a lot taller. So they naturally get the vitamins and everything that they require from the sun. But so there's some shrubs down below that don't receive that, but they will receive it from underneath the soil in the root system based on they're all willing to gift and receive to each other. They're not going, well, hang on a second, you gave me water twice this week, but I haven't given you anything. What do I owe you? No, they're just there to gift and receive. So, and in truth, we're more like nature, and we keep trying to stipulate these regulations or this simulation between each other. Like nature doesn't separate. They don't, I have a lot of birds in my backyard, and each bird isn't sort of going, hey, I sound better than you, I look better than you, or I'm a better color, or anything like that. They're just chirping. And literally, I don't know if you know this, but birds, the noise that because in Australia, especially in Queensland, they'll start at like 4:30 in the morning, but they're literally waking up the trees because trees sleep. So the chirp of the birds is like, there's this, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something underneath the leaves, and it literally the frequency starts to wake up the leaves, and it starts to wake up the trunk of the tree. So but the trees aren't going, I owe you anything for it. They're just waking up from the frequency, It's like, can you imagine what it would be like if that's how we lived our life?
Wow. What a literally perspective switch. I guess we're so used in our little human ego to have a give and take culture where it's like, I give you this, my scorecard is 2, your scorecard is 0. Next time
Yeah.
And I guess if we just give from the heart without expecting anything back, what a beautiful thing to do. Such a perspective. It's such a liberating perspective to have. Just having it. is beautiful.
Well, if I look at, I mean, I watched the podcast that you did with Gary Douglas as well, and it was, and Gary is a different creature. That
I know.
he's amazing, and I've worked with him for 24 years. I adore that man, and I can also, but I also got to know you in a different way from watching that, right? And then I'm here now talking to you, and it's like there is nothing in our world about did you pay for something, did you gift me something or anything like that. But at the moment, there's an interaction and an engagement of two beings on this planet. And it's like, I can tell you have this generosity of spirit, like this kindness in your world. To me, that is much more valuable than, are you going to buy me lunch? You know?
I guess the point of view changes all choices. It changes all choices. Having the perspective, rather than the give and take, the give and receive, the perspective changes your action then. So that brings us to the next point, which is change, right? We're so used to holding on to our negative beliefs about money and wealth, and the fact that you can actually receive money rather than putting lots of hard work to do it. And I've experienced both worlds. I've experienced the world of working my ass off to make a certain amount, and the world of just letting go, having an intention, and it actually coming to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, how do you relate to that? And what's your perspective?
I think we've all done the first one, like working our butt off to get something that we've decided that we need. And the second one, I think takes a lot of vulnerability and a lot of courage. And it's weirdly enough, it's actually the easiest, and yet it's the one that we avoid, because you literally have to have a trust in yourself and a trust in the universe and a trust in something greater is going to show up by, as we were talking about before, your willingness to receive. So it really is like it's a different reality, like functioning from that.
And how did you combine both of these mechanisms to make money when you decided that you were going to change your situation, and then when you were in the process of changing?
Look, it's probably it sounds silly, but it's probably one of the hardest things I chose is to get out of debt and to have money. And here's the thing, when I finally went, okay, Simone, you need to do something about this. And the first thing I did was I worked out, okay, how in debt am I, you know? And I looked at all my bills and my bank accounts and all that. And I calculated that. And as you mentioned, it was 187,000 Australian dollars that I was in debt. And I was like, okay. And I did have a moment of just going, oh my goodness, like, you know, what? And I was like, how am I going to make that much money? You know, how am I going to get out of this? So, and then I had these access consciousness tools, which I can talk about some of them. Well, one of them was actually the point of view one. Like I really walked around going, okay, what is my point of view around money? Because I realized how much I was limiting myself by functioning from other people's points of view and not having a look at what mine was. So I started to use, you know, some of these tools, and I really made the demand of myself, okay, you need to do this. Like, you need to look at this. Like, even I looked at every single person I owed money to, and I rang every single person, whether it was a friend or, you know, an institution or another company, business, etc. And I rang them all and I said, hey, look, I'm really aware that I owe you X amount of money. I didn't have it at the moment, but I wasn't running away from it anymore. I was picking up the phone, and, you know, like credit card companies were like, what? The room? And I'm like, yeah. And there was one guy who I rang, and I owed him $15,000. And I said to him, look, I don't have the money. I said, but here's what I can do. I know I can give you $50 a month. Now, $50 a month out of 15,000 is nothing, right? But I knew I had to start somewhere. Like, just avoiding it, ignoring it wasn't going to make it go away. So, and I said to him, look, I can do $50 a month. When I create more money, I'll give you more. And he said to me, can I take you out to dinner? Can my wife and I take you out to dinner? And I was like, you want to take me out to dinner? I was like, I owe you all this money and I'm literally telling you I can't pay you, and you want to take me out to dinner? And he was like, yeah. He said, Simone, I believe in you and I'm really grateful that you called. And I was like, okay. So even then I noticed this different engagement and this different interaction. There was me leaning into something rather than, literally like running away from it and slamming the door on it. So that was a really big piece for me, is to be really vulnerable and go, hey, this is where I'm at and I would like to change this. So the piece that I'd also like to mention is it took me about 2 years to get out of debt and to pay everyone off, which was way quicker than what I thought. And there was this moment, I was in my office in Brisbane and I was looking at my accounts and looking at everything, and I realized that I had money, and I sat there and I was like, this is it. This is what it feels like to have money. And I was like, this is a bit boring. Why is there not like, fireworks and someone knocking on my door, with a bottle of champagne, just being like, let's celebrate, you're amazing. It was like nothing. And I was like, okay. And then within 2 weeks, I found myself back in debt. And I was so grateful for that, because I went, wow, what am I choosing with this? Because it's a choice. And I realized, and I started asking myself, what do I love about being in debt? And I realized I knew that energy. I knew it so well. I knew what it was like to struggle. I knew what it was like to, owe my rent on a Thursday and on a Tuesday wonder how am I going to hustle to get that money. I knew that. And I didn't know what it was like to actually have money. And I'm going to say, have too much money, like have more money than, be able to walk into any restaurant and order off the menu and not be concerned about it. And that's what I started asking for. And so I made a new demand. It wasn't just to get out of debt. It was like, what is it like to actually have money? What is it like to be able to book a ticket anywhere in the world in business or first class just because I can? I was like, that's what I'm asking for. And that's what I'm aiming for. So it was like another demand in my world. And then to keep choosing that and acknowledge and recognize when I was like slipping back into this energy of struggle and lack and scarcity, that it was familiar. Because we tend to choose what's familiar rather than ask for the difference and the change.
We tend to choose what's familiar. That's such a powerful thing. And I look at myself, and sometimes I tend to fall back to negative habits just because it's something that I know, right? Like if I think about when I get overwhelmed, I start just eating chocolate, like a little kid, literally. And I realized that in myself, and I made a choice. I actually talked to a friend. I was like, okay, look, we're doing keto for 30 days and I'm ending sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're actually doing it. I've done it once before. We did it again. And you realize this point of view, this question that what if I could do something differently and change and commit to it? How better would I feel? Like now I feel full of energy. If I was overwhelmed and I ate chocolate and I had this podcast, I wouldn't be having the same conversation with you, Simone. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. I guess that brings us to action, right? You talked about the money, the access consciousness money tools. I guess, can we reveal some of them, the ones that have most changed your life?
Yeah. Look, I'll talk about the one that I hated the most as well, because I really did. And it's called it's 10%, like the honoring of you. And what it is like every single dollar or whatever currency you're working in, whatever you earn $100, you put $10 away just for you. Okay. So it's an honoring account, and you put that 10% away, not for when you're stuck, not for the unexpected bill, not for a holiday, not to help a friend out, nothing. You put it away just for you. It's an honoring. And Fuad, this made no sense to me whatsoever. In fact, it made me cranky. I was like, I owe all this money and you want me to put 10% away? Thanks. For me, I could be paying people off. I could be doing something fun. And it made no sense. But I also knew what I was choosing was not working. So I also knew I had to change the way I was looking at something. And I had to change the way I was looking at my money and finances. So I went, okay. And I had one of those old school calendars on my wall, and I made a date after 3 months. And I was like, okay, made this little note. This is when you can start spending that 10% basically. Because I was so resistant to this tool. But like you went, okay, 30 days. keto, no sugar, I was like, 3 months, use these tools. So there was that one that I used. There was the everything about the point of view. Like, I remember watching this show, and it was on an Emirates plane or something like that. And they have these random documentaries, and it was these rich kids somewhere in the Middle East that were getting, like, for their birthdays, they were getting like this, gold bicycle, or they had this all, and it was just like this wealth that I was like, are you kidding me? But here's the thing. I was like, are you kidding me? That is so ridiculous. That's a judgment, right? So I would even watch shows like that, and I'd be like, okay, what's my point of view here? Because you need to be able to receive everything. What if I could get a gold bike because I just desired a gold bike, But if we have a judgment of it, then we literally resist it and we push it outside of our world. But it's the same thing with poverty, like extreme poverty. If I have a judgment of that, then I'm not willing to receive from people who are living in poverty. And I would like to choose to receive from anyone and anything. So that's one of the things I did. The 10% account, I did that. The third thing I did was, and it's funny because it's not as applicable nowadays, but I carried an amount of money around with me that I perceived a wealthy person would carry. So at all times, like just a little wallet. I mean, so many people don't use cash anymore. I personally love cash and I do use cash.
Same.
But I carried about $1,000 on me at all times, not to be spent, just carried it on me. And I had it mostly in Australian dollars, but I also had US and Canadian and British pounds at the time. And I just carried it in this little purse, right? So that was for me what I perceived a wealthy person would carry. So I did those things, and there's a few others, but at the end of those 3 months, I looked at everything and I looked at my finances and I was like, And it wasn't like I had this huge amount of money, like in my 10% account, but I was like, oh, what is this? And again, it wasn't that familiar energy. I went, oh, this is like a sense of peace with money. Because if worst case scenario, I had this money sitting in my 10% account, I could pay for a few months rent and a few months of things, and I wouldn't be stressed. And I was like, oh, wow, this is what it's like not to be stressed with money, and started to look at it. And so I went, okay, well, let's go again. And I've got that 10%. I've had it since I started. I didn't spend it. Well, actually, I lie. I have spent it only on things that I perceive have intrinsic value, like these pearls. These pearls are part of my 10%. So,
beautiful.
Thank you. And I think everybody has a certain amount of money that when they get to in their honor account, that there's this, this energy of ease. And then, and only then, did I start buying things that I considered were intrinsic value, which would basically mean I can sell these for the same amount today or more tomorrow. So it's some form of investment. And for me, it's fun to wear the pearls, So I kept going with that. So they're three of the tools that I used a lot. And I mean, they sound so easy, and I mean, it sounds so easy to go keto and not eat sugar.
Yeah, it's fucking like, it's the most miserable thing. Simone is actually miserable. Like yesterday, I had so much cravings that I went to 4 different pharmacies to get keto-friendly chocolate.
Right.
Yeah, so it's that, like, it's not fun, yet it works. It detoxes your entire gut. You feel so much more energetic, alive. You work with such a focus where it's like, I'm a different type. It's like I took that pill from the movie Limitless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can relate so much to what you said, especially the 10% rule and the judgment. Like I could see in myself, when I actually, last week I fell into judgment. I was looking at a very, very, very successful entrepreneur in the Middle East, and I was like, yeah, this guy has no work-life balance. This guy is just, he doesn't know what happiness is. He doesn't know, he has that much money because he's lost. He doesn't know how to cope with himself. And then I look at it now and I'm like, are you just judging because he's more financially wealthy than you? You don't even know the guy, right, Simone? You don't even know the guy. So I guess non-judgment is literally, this is why I agree so much with Gary and I love what he says, is literally the solution to every problem you have.
Absolutely.
Like, it's insane.
Well, if you like name one thing that you judge and it becomes greater.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And most of the time it's ourself.
Yeah, it's ourself, it's our bodies, it's our money, it's our business, it's our relationships, it's all of that. And none of that, when you judge it, does it become greater. You just feed it into something that you are rejecting and you're avoiding and you're not actually willing to have a look at it. Like, say, for example, the money, we're talking about that. When I finally went, okay, I'm actually going to have a look at this. I'm going to see, what's up. And I need to because I just told you those tools. Now, people listening, you could go, well, that's really easy. It wasn't. That was really hard for me to put away that 10%. There was so many things. I felt so bad that I was putting 10% away for me and I wasn't paying somebody off that I owed money to. I didn't want to put 10% away and just have it sit in an account. I wanted to spend it on something that was fun for me, So it was not easy just to do that. And I realized that the energy for me too is it honors you. Like, I realized I would get money in and then the first thing I'd think about is, oh, okay, I've got money. I just made money. How much is 10% of that? That needs to go into my honor account. Whereas previously, I used to get money in and go, oh, who have I got to pay? What bills you paid? And even that small moment, Fuad, I would go to honoring me instead of honoring the bills. And that is just such a change.
I guess having this honor account, 10% away, is an account where you just put it for investments. I just want to make something sure, or for investment.
Yeah. No,
okay.
No. Okay. So here's the thing. I use it for investments that have intrinsic value. Like, my 10% account is not in my stock market account. It's not in anything like that because you can lose, right?
Yeah.
It's in something, yes, I could lose on buying these pearls too. And yet in this world today, it's like, gold pearls are not exactly easy to come by. So, they do have intrinsic value, right? But buying something like a horse doesn't. They eat, okay? They eat a lot. You end up paying every month for them. I have a horse, So that's different. So I wouldn't buy that with my 10% account. So it's not for investments. It's what I would ask if you do this is just do it for you. Do it for you. And everybody has a certain amount, like I said before, that they need to get to have that sense of peace. And for me, it was about $30,000. When I had $30,000 in my account, I was like, oh, and it just had this ease in my world. And then I noticed as my business increased and because as your business increases, your life increases, also your expenses increase. So I noticed that increased. And then I went, oh, it needs to be about 100,000 just sitting in my honor account, doing nothing. Like, it's earning interest. That's it. But it's not for anything in particular. I need to have it there just to have it there, which is interesting because my accountant is always like, hey, this money you've got. And I was like, don't talk about it. We're not touching that on my honor account. And so it doesn't make sense to anybody else, but I'm like, I don't care if, banks actually love it because banks are like, wow, she's got all this money sitting in an account and she's not doing anything with it. Sure, we'll lend you money to get another, or something. And I'm like, great. So I use it to my advantage, but it's not to explain anything to anybody. It really is just for me. It's an honor of me.
I guess having that account just gives you the energy within where money is not a concern anymore, which allows you to have the perspective that to be open for more.
Yeah.
I can see it now. I feel the power of this and I'm going to actually do it. I read a book called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah.
And it talked about the 10% rule. Yet I was like, I did it for like 2 weeks and then I stopped. But now I can see how powerful you do it. Like the honor account, it's completely different than just putting 10% away and just honoring you and your energy with money so that you can make more wealth. I guess it's extremely powerful.
I also brought like with it, over the years, I brought silver, platinum, gold, which is all worth more now. Like, I had at one stage, I had this 10-kilo silver bar that was the doorstop on my bedroom. And people would go, is that silver? This brick of silver as my doorstop. And I was like, yep. And they're like, wow. It's like, I don't care. It's fun to have a 10-kilo silver bracelet. And I got carpet, so I don't have it anymore. But the whole point was it was fun to have that. So, you know, what makes it fun for you as well?
Yeah. What makes it fun for you? Simone, what a beautiful conversation. I usually try to end with a fun question, right? My question for you here is pretty simple. It's, what's your favorite spiritual quote? That's it.
You know what? It's from Gary Douglas. And he said to me about 20 years ago, what if the purpose of life was just to have fun? It's another one that really annoyed me because I was like, are you kidding me? You know how many conversations I've had with friends about what my purpose of life is? And over the years, I've let that unravel in my world. And I'm like, oh, this has a lot to it. Like, what if we lived our relationships, our business, our everything with what if the purpose of life was to have fun?
What if the purpose of life was to have fun? I guess what I realized also is that every new concept that annoys you means it's literally triggering your negative beliefs. Like, you realize that it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, such a beautiful episode. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Simone. I want to leave you the space to promote anything you're excited about. Maybe not promote, just share anything you're excited about.
Oh, gosh, I'm excited about so much, but I have lots of stuff on my website and Instagram, etc. I do have something that just popped when you said that. It's called Profit Club. And it's a membership. It's a monthly membership. It's so cheap. And you get 2 calls with me a month. And it's in multiple languages. So, I know you're in the Middle East. It's in Arabic. I know there's many other languages. But it's in Arabic. It's in English. Obviously, I speak English. But yeah, it's called the Profit Club. And you can find out about more of that on my website as well.
That's amazing. I'm going to put all the links below. I hope you guys enjoyed. We covered today how to take the choice to actually have a better financial life. And some of the things we included were, we talked about the change of point of views. We talked about asking yourself greater questions. And something that really touched me about you was the vulnerability and the humility to just look at your current situation and say, okay, this is where I'm at now. What are small mini steps I can do? Like you said, divided by 24, your debt, to pay it back and call the people and just be in the state of mind where I'm actually fixing things.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And I think it's so honorable and so courageous to do.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on here, Fuad.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rich Inside podcast. I'm your host, Fuad. And today we had the pleasure to have Simeone Milasas.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.